Coming up in this video, 3 things that your speeches and talks and presentations need in order to absolutely kick ass. Hey everybody, it's Kalymnios here from thethoughtgym.com, here helping you become that superhuman leader that I know that you can be. And if you want to be a superhuman leader, if you want to be a decent leader of any kind, you're going to have to communicate in public. You're going to have to present your ideas to people. And of the years and years of speeches that I've delivered, talks that I've been to, speakers that I've seen, I've worked out that really the best speakers out there, and I'm still working on becoming the best speaker that I can be, they effectively have these components in their talks and in their speeches. And it's summarized by 3 little words. These 3 words are spark, spice, and heart. Your presentations, your speeches have to have spark, spice, and heart in order to be absolutely amazing and get the audience really engaged and really taking on board what you're talking about. So naturally, if you know me, you know that I love my acronyms. I find it easier to remember, especially if you're working on a speech right now. If you can remember that you need to have these spark, spice, and heart into your speech, it's going to be easier to put all the components in. So let's look at the first one, which is spark. Spark, S-P-A-R-K. The first S, it stands for story. If you know anything about our culture, our civilization as we've developed, we have developed our history through story. History, in fact, means his story. I don't know why, it should be called her story maybe as well, but either way, it's about story. We've communicated story through the centuries. It's how we engage and how we learn. So make sure that your speech is not just a dry speech, but it's got to have some kind of element of story in it. The next one is P. P stands for purpose. What is the purpose of you even getting up and talking? Do you want to entertain the person? Do you want to inspire them? Do you want to move them to action? Do you want to educate them? You've got to understand what is the purpose of your speech so that the audience will also get that purpose. You've got to be really clear on why you're talking in the first place. The next one is A. A is for authenticity. Authenticity is about being real, being yourself, being natural, making sure that your actions, your words, your tonality, your voice is all congruent with the message that you're giving and who you are as a person. Because we have got amazing bullshit radars. We will see inauthentic people like that, a mile away. So if we can be authentic, it makes it easier. It makes it easier for you, especially because you don't have to think about being something you're not. Just be who you are. Okay, then we've got R. R stands for relatable. The audience has got to relate to what you're talking, the message that you're talking about, the stories that you're giving, all relate to you in some way as well. If there's no relationship between those things, it's going to fall on deaf ears. You're not going to get the message across. You're not going to have the impact that you want. So make sure that anything you say when you're speaking in public, presenting in public, at work, anywhere else, is relatable to the audience that you've got. And then K within Spark stands for killer ending. We have got to give a killer ending. The beginning's got to be strong. The middle, generally, it's going to be good, but most people are not going to remember too much. But the killer ending has to be there so that people can walk away feeling exactly what you want them to at the end of your speech. All right, then we move on to the next word, which is spice. S-P-I-C-E, spice. Your speech, your presentation needs to have spice in it. What's the first S stand for? The first S stands for stats. Stats, data, numbers. If you watch TED Talks, for example, you'll see there's always like a big stat out there, a big number that is thrown out there. It helps create impact and make it more memorable, helps give a little bit of professionalism to it as well. It helps people really relate as well. When you've got stats, numbers, data, it can really have a big impact on your speech or your presentation. Next, we have got P in spice, and that is for a phrase that pays. What's a phrase that pays? A phrase is something that you can say over and over within your speech that people are going to walk away and almost like summarize your speech in that one phrase. So for me, there's a talk that I gave a year and a half ago actually, and the whole phrase, the phrase that pays there, the repeatable phrase was, "This too shall pass." It was all about the transient nature of life and how to get through any trouble in life, understanding this too shall pass. But you've got Barack Obama, "Yes, we can," as a phrase that kind of summed up his whole campaign, if you like. Or Martin Luther King, "I have a dream." So you've got to have a phrase that pays in your speech if you want it to be top level. Okay, all of these ideas, you don't have to include all of them in every talk or every presentation, but if you've got all of them in there, it's gonna be a hugely impactful speech or presentation. Then the I within SPICE stands for interactive. And by interactive, I mean, make sure it's almost like a conversation with the audience. Whether that's even if their conversation goes on in their head. So whether you're asking rhetorical questions, or maybe you're actually asking for questions with feedback, maybe you're getting them to do something, chat to each other, think about something in a certain way, make sure that there is some level of engagement and interactivity with that audience member so that they can feel involved in that talk, in that presentation. And then C within SPICE is callback. If you've been to any comedy shows, watched comedy on TV, you know that they do massive amounts of callbacks where you may say something at the beginning, you may leave people hanging, they don't actually even realize that the story is kind of not finished, and then you call back to that later. Or maybe if you're on a multi-speaker event or you're speaking at some event where other people have been on before you, then you might even do a callback to something that someone else said earlier on. That just shows that you've been paying attention, it shows a level of professionalism, and you can help relate your speech to maybe the grander theme of the entire conference or presentation day if you do a callback. Of course, you can do callbacks within your own speech as well, which is mainly the point of this, and that you bring people back to some point that you've said earlier on. Okay, now we have E within SPICE, and that stands for emotion or passion. We need to have emotion or passion in our speeches so that people can be bought in with us. Nobody wants to see, okay, and so these are the numbers from the sales from last week, and no one cares about that. No one cares. You've got to put passion into your delivery, emotion. Whether that's passion, maybe it's about being sad at the right places, being happy at the right places, being scared at the right places. Put some kind of emotion into your speeches. All right, now we have done Spark, we have done Spice. The last word is heart. We need to have heart in our speeches and our presentations to really give the impact that we want. What does the H stand for? It stands for humor. If we can inject a bit of humor into our presentation, into our speeches, it doesn't have to be one-liners and jokes or anything cringy like that, unless you're really good at those, but just having a little bit of humor in your presentations, in your speeches, are going to really relax the audience, it's going to get them bought into you, and you're going to find that you are able to get your message across a lot clearer. Then the E within heart stands for elevate. We need to elevate our audience or inspire our audience. We need to show to them that maybe this is where we are, this is the current situation, but we can elevate them to another place, another section of their lives, of their sales, at business, whatever it is. We should be thinking about, do we want that speech to elevate people, and we should be elevating them so that when they leave your presentation or your speech or your talk, they are leaving a better person than when they walked in. And really that should be for every interaction that you have with everyone throughout life, I believe, is that you leave that person feeling blessed and happy that they had that interaction with you. But you've got to elevate the audience, in my opinion, in order to really hit a home run when it comes to public speaking and presentation skills. Then the A within heart stands for analogies or metaphors. If we can use analogies and metaphors within our speech so that people can take something that they maybe don't understand and relate it to something that they do understand, a metaphor and analogy is a great way to do that, because it's something that we can then really process in our own minds so that we can then understand what the speaker is saying. Especially when it becomes something quite challenging as a topic and something quite scientific or detailed, it becomes really hard. So last week's video, for example, I used an analogy when I was talking about the telomeres at the end of your chromosomes. And I said that the telomeres, which are protective caps at the end of your chromosomes in your DNA, are like the eaglets at the end of shoelaces, the little plastic bits at the end of your shoelaces. So that's like an analogy of what one thing is compared to the other. So you can relate, you understand what a shoelace is because you've experienced that. We haven't really experienced strands of DNA like close up, but now we have an analogy or a metaphor, if you like, and that helps us understand it a lot better. Then we've got R, which is for repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Our brains really only work in terms of consuming information and learning things when we repeat them. Habits are required repetition, and the same with speeches. If we want to repeat a phrase, a theme, an idea, a concept. We may give 3 or 4 different stories to repeat the same concept or theme or message or learning that we want the audience to take. So make sure you repeat several ideas, themes, concepts in there, or the central theme or concept that you want, so that people can understand it in different ways, and different people will then pick up on it as well. And then finally, the T within heart. If you haven't already guessed it, something that a lot of speakers completely ignore really, which is no good, but TED Talks are super strict on it. Have you guessed it? Yes, it is timing. You have to respect the timing. When you go over time, then you are effectively saying to the other speakers that your time doesn't matter. You don't really care about them as such. You just want to be, from your own ego point of view, just getting out there. And I've got to say, I'm pretty guilty of this, and I'm really working on it. But I'm very respectful of timings, and I've been practicing for about 5-6 years now, getting better and better. And I have to say, it is so much better than it ever was. But if you're a speaker, if you're giving presentations at work, outside, respect the timing that you have been given. Okay, so that's it. 3 things, 3 words, a framework if you like that. If you include those, even if you don't include all of them, but you include many of those in your speeches, your talks, your presentation, your speeches are going to be so much better than anybody else's. So remember, you want to have your speeches contain a bit of spark, a bit of spice, and a lot of heart. Spark, story, purpose, authenticity, relatable, and a killer ending. Spice, you want stats, you want a phrase that pays. You want it to be interactive, you want a callback, and you want emotion. And finally, you want heart, you want humor, you want to elevate, you want analogies, you want repetition, and you want to stick to timing. Spark, spice, heart. If you're going to deliver any kind of talk, presentation, speech, remember those 3 things. Work your talk and your speech around those 3 things, and you're going to find that you have a freaking amazing talk and speech. Something that I'm going to use going forward, because I developed this as a concept. It's my IP, my intellectual property, but I developed it about 3 weeks ago when I started looking at all the great speeches that I've either witnessed on TV or live or heard, and what makes a great speech, and I've worked it out to these 3 things. Spark, spice, heart. Go out there, do it. Remember, subscribe to this channel for more awesome kick-ass videos to help you become superhuman. But until I see you again, stay strong, stay super. Bye-bye.